Happy Wednesday, Dolphins. Welcome back to the PFN Miami Dolphins podcast. I'm Dolph Freaky, your co-host once again, with my friend Adam Beasley here to talk OTAs, maybe a little bit of hockey talk since we're fresh off a big game last night. How are we feeling, Adam?
Are we still friends? We'll always be friends. We'll always be friends.
We're friends,
even after you're going to be weeping into your Wheaties in a couple of days when the Florida Panthers finish off that joke of a franchise, the New York Rangers. Look at that. All right, for those of you listening and not watching on YouTube,
I'm rubbing my Rangers nails today, guys. So I went to the game last night, and Beasley decided he wasn't going to go. Maybe out of lack of faith, maybe, was it? I fully went into it knowing what we were going into. So I knew this game was going to overtime before we even walked in the door.
I don't have Allie's unlimited resources. I can't just go to every game I want.
Oh, please.
I have to pick and choose. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to decide and wait till game 6 for the clincher so I can celebrate with the Panthers, watch the handshake at center ice as they go on to face the Western Conference champs in the Stanley Cup final. That's what I'm waiting
for. Okay, so I do believe that the clincher will be game 7 in New York. Rangers in 7, baby. Let's go. We knew it was going to be a back and forth series. You know what? I'm glad for that because that's what makes it interesting. And you know what? The fact that we are friends makes this a lot easier on both of us.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I don't take anything that seriously, particularly not sports. I cannot like a team, but love their fans. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I don't like the Rangers, but we love you here, Alex.
Oh, man. The Panthers fans have really been giving it to me this week on social. They really,
well, I mean,
I know y'all are so mad at me.
You're kind of a shock to their system because they think you're all Miami, all let's go. And are you a Heat fan?
So I'm not a Heat fan. So like maybe just for the people who don't know, like I grew up in Pennsylvania. I lived there for 24 years. My parents are from New York and New Jersey. So, you know, we were going to games in the Northeast, you know, for my entire upbringing. And I lived in Philadelphia for 6 years during pharmacy school. And so I became a Sixers and a Phillies fan while I was living in Philadelphia. And then the Rangers were just, honestly, the Rangers fandom's probably more deep rooted than like my actual Dolphin fandom because, you know, my dad is just like, he's more diehard Rangers than he even is Dolphins. But the Dolphins kind of goes back to like my great-great-grandfather. But dad is the reason for all of this. So don't blame me, okay? What's good about me is that I'm not a bandwagoner. I didn't move to Florida and jump the bandwagon. Okay, we don't like those types of people. So, you know, I'm just going with my roots. And y'all can hate if you want. You can call me a closet Jets fan. You can say, oh, you know, go root for the Giants. All the things that you guys have been spewing at me on social media. But at the end of the day, like, this is who I am and this is my history and I love the Rangers. So enough.
Well said. Meanwhile,
just trying to get that out there, okay?
I am absolutely a bandwagon Panthers fan. I did not go to many games before the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, before they were good. Yeah.
During those bleak years where they couldn't even sniff the playoffs, I was not into it. But look, I think any team benefits from success.
Of course. That's how fans are made. I mean, we see it, you know, with the Dolphins.
They've been really good. And the arena's 15 minutes from my house. So
well, that's a plus. Yeah, no, it's about an hour and a half for me. And you know what? I have been to many Panthers games, whether the Rangers were playing or not. I go out and I support the home team in most cases because all my friends are Panthers, you know, fans. So it is what it is, you know, and you know, like as we've seen with the Dolphins, a lot of fans have fallen off because they haven't had success. And, you know, now that our teams are, you know, coming back.
Yeah, no, I will be at game 6. Are you done for the series? Are you coming back out for game 6?
I don't know. Like I'm having a little bit of trouble with my pocketbook right now. I'm how much do I really want to put into this right now with football on the horizon and a lot of trips needing to be planned? I'm like, you know, if I do go to game 6, it's probably just going to be a solo mission because last night I forked out like $1,500 for my entire, you know, my family and my dad and my cousin and everybody to come with me. So I can't keep doing that. But, you know, I could maybe do one more solo mission or 2.
That's a lot of episodes of the PFN Miami Dolphins podcast to handle that tag.
PFN, I need a raise right now because I need to buy hockey tickets. It has literally nothing to do with football.
Well, if you go to game 6, let me know, and I'll make sure you get the worst seat in the house. We're
what?
All the other Rangers fans.
Even the worst seat in the house, which is like pretty close to what I had last night, even the worst seat was actually really good. I could see everything that was going on, and I was probably like maybe 5 rows from the top. But, even if I was at the top, it's fine. It was fine. It was good to be in the building. And you know what? The energy there was fantastic. I noticed the new little goal song that you guys must have copied from the Rangers and, just recently started, because I had been to many games and never heard that before. So I'm like, where did that come from? It sounds a lot like the Rangers goal song. So I found that interesting how that just cropped up.
Well, you should probably be used to hearing the Panthers song a lot more than the Rangers then, right? I mean,
no. Well, I guess, yeah. Because I don't often get to Madison Square Garden.
No, I'm talking about the Panthers score goals and the Rangers don't. That was just being a joke. That's all.
Enough. Okay. Yeah. Tomorrow
I will say this. This fun back and forth is why the Dolphins need to get really good again.
Yes.
I mean, how much fun is it? And again, truth be told, I go to probably 8 to 10 Panthers games a year. I really enjoy the experience. Take my kids sometimes.
Yeah.
My wife and I are going on Saturday. Sitting with Andrew Abramson, who's a season ticket holder, used to cover the team for the Palm Beach Post, one of my good friends. So
nice.
Grateful for that opportunity.
It's a good family-friendly atmosphere. I will say that. Like, I would say, we had no issues during the game at all. It was more like walking out in the parking lot at the end. A lot of people are frustrated or cocky, you're getting a mix of that. And that was a little culture shock for my kids. Like, my kids know the bad words and they know like not to say it. And they didn't understand why people would use those words talking about a game, which is supposed to be fun. And, so there's a little bit of culture shock for the kids there. But in general, I think it's more family friendly than a football game.
Well, so the point I'm making is that the Dolphins need to build that culture again. And they need to have real rivalries, not ones with the Jets, who neither team and for years and years and years had a chance of dethroning the Patriots, right? I mean, it's important for the South Florida culture to get that back, because I do think, to your point, a lot of the casuals have really dropped off.
Yeah.
And even with, I mean, the Dolphins are certainly one of the most dynamic, interesting, fun teams in the National Football League. Mike McDaniel has been a sea change when it comes to the likability of this team, the excitability, the interest level of that team. Right. But it's not overnight, and you can't expect, the tens, hundreds of thousands of fans that have slowly tuned you out over 25 years or whatever of not winning a playoff game to all of a sudden flip a switch and come back. Mm-hmm. I will say this: if the Dolphins ever, and I think they will at some point, ever get back to the Super Bowl and even win one, it will be like old times again here. Now, do I think that's going to happen this year? Certainly for Dolphins fans like you, I hope for the best.
Yes, it is. We're going to the Super Bowl, baby.
And
stay positive.
I think baby steps are probably more realistic. Win a playoff game, get your feet wet there, keep your quarterback healthy, have the offense playing at a high level. And the Dolphins have talked about all these things at length, and we had a chance yesterday to chat with Raheem Mostert, who has been to the Super Bowl, not with the Dolphins, obviously, but with Mike McDaniel and the 49ers a handful of years ago. Yeah. And he said, and there's the big quote out of it, was the last 2 years have been BS. And getting there, just consolation prize, that's not enough for us. And the way they've fallen apart physically, we, as in what Mostert was saying, the way we've fallen apart physically has been bad. And the way they haven't really peaked at the right time has been bad. And those are certainly two of the biggest priorities, I think, for this organization as we, kind of really near the finish line of the spring. Today's Wednesday. We're taping this on Tuesday. I was at OTAs, and it's the last open OTA practice. And next week there's 3 days of minicamp, and then they're gone for a month and a half. So I think everything the Dolphins are doing from a strategic standpoint, obviously you need to be ready for the season. But I think they're way more worried about, say, December and January than they are about September and October, because they've seen what happens if you don't have it all together at the right time. All those early wins and scoring 70 points against the Broncos, having Tua as an MVP candidate, all that fun stuff that we had here in South Florida the first half of last season, really doesn't mean anything if you're not doing it when the games matter the most. And so I think you're going to see Tyreek Hill get a bit more of a breather early on, certainly in training camp. I would be stunned if we see him play it down in the preseason, and maybe even some in the regular season. They've gone out and spent significant resources on bringing in additional help. Jonnu Smith, Odell Beckham, all these additional targets. 2 wide receivers were drafted. They drafted Jalen Wright. All these ways to take the pressure off of Tyreek, because I think they understand that it's not sustainable, that 2 straight years of 1,700 yards plus, 1 billion targets. I think he has 238 catches the last 2 years. At some point, a human being, even someone who's in superhuman strength like Tyreek and speed, you got your limits. Yeah. And I think we've seen collectively the team wear out late in the season. And I think their number one goal this year is to ensure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think, Coach alluded to it this week that he's not super concerned that, like a lot of the starting players haven't been in OTAs as much, because this is allowing for the depth to develop. The guys that are, the 2s and 3s are able to come out more and, get more reps and get more practice now before those guys kind of return. And so I think that's a good point, too, that like we do have a lot of depth now, and we should rest these guys to prevent injury going forward. So I like now that we're starting to see that the team is starting to regain health. We know Phillips and Chubb are obviously still working on it, but we've heard from Nick Needham that he's feeling better. A lot of the guys, have alluded to the fact that they were banged up after last season, whether those were like big headlines or not. They were worn out at the end. So, I like the approach that Coach is taking now with trying to preserve these guys so that they are fully like ready to compete.
Yeah, here's the quote from Tyreek. I actually asked him about this. Tyreek, I remember the last couple of years, he wouldn't want to take – this is a question I asked McDaniel. He wouldn't want to take a playoff during practices. Now that he's 30 and you got to think long-term for him, do you kind of ramp him down the summer? And here's McDaniel's answer, and I think it was pretty revealing. Quote, another great benefit of year 3, especially with the guys that this is their 3rd year in this program with me as the head coach, is understanding who they are and how to best serve those individuals. So knowing Tyreek's all or nothing type of mindset on the grass, yes, we do take that into account. There are multiple times that he's usually trying to talk us into it, or we're talking him out of participation on the field, knowing where his Ferrari horsepower is at and making sure that stays that way. So it is helpful with some of the types of the practice players we have, knowing them and being able to keep them out of harm's way as best we can. So, yeah, I mean, my guess is when we get to the regular season, you're going to need, a straitjacket to keep Tyreek Hill off the field. We saw last year, even with a pretty gnarly, high ankle sprain, he returned to the game. Now he had to miss the next week, but then he was back on the field. He is an absolute gamer, and he does not like coming out. He does not like even missing practice days. So I do think it's good that from that standpoint, that he's taken it easy this spring, and he needs to take it easy in the summer as well. There is another side of that coin, though, Allie, and I wanted to ask your thoughts about this. We have yet to see Tyreek Hill at OTAs. Now, he was there at some point last week when the media was not, but we, and as the media, have not in person seen Tyreek in 2023. God, what year is it? 2024.
It goes fast.
We have not yet seen Odell Beckham, who signed, 3-4 weeks ago, whatever it was. He's known to have his own routine, and we haven't seen Jalen Waddle. And to me, Waddle is an interesting one because, unlike the other two, there's no questions about his contract, right? He is absolutely going to want to get paid. And I wonder if, and we haven't heard from him yet, I wonder if him kind of staying away a bit is a message he's sending, kind of like what Tua did earlier in the spring, that, hey, pay to play here, guys. If you want me to go and do all the things that I'm not contractually obligated to, I'm just not going to come to OTAs. And I can't speak for certain that that's what's going on. We haven't talked to Jalen yet, but it does make a fair amount of sense.
I mean, I really hope that's not the case. I hope it is more of a thing. These guys have their own routines. They're doing their own, their own workouts with their hired coaches and things like that. But I mean, yeah, you probably do have a good point there. And I mean, you would know better than any of us, that's a possibility.
Yeah, here's the quote. I asked him if he'd seen Tyreek, Waddle, and Beckham together on the field yet, and this is McDaniel's answer. Quote, their individual processes through the offseason, where they're at, we haven't had that opportunity yet, but I'm not in any hurry to see that. Each individual has to earn their keep and earn their targets, so having all three at the same time isn't necessarily a big deal to me. It's each and every one of them understanding our offense, how to separate in the timing of the play, understanding how to align and who and what to block. All those things are the most important to me, especially as you are right, live in the offseason. So he's not sweating it. Now, certainly next week is a whole totally different ball of wax. Because next week is the mandatory minicamps. And if one or any of those guys decides to sit out, they would be subject to a fine. It's a different situation then. So, but again, I mean, these coaches have these practices for a reason. They see their value to it. And I am sure if you doused McDaniel with true serum, he'd want every single player on the roster in Dolphins HQ for the entirety of the program.
Yeah, well, I definitely hope to see all the guys out there for the mandatory camps. I don't want any of this drama. Like, fans don't like drama as much as we perpetuate this on social media. So let's hope all the guys show. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you see out there at those camps.
Yeah, as for what we saw yesterday at Open OPTA number 2, Tua, 7-on-7, did not do 11-on-11s. Curious as to why. We'll see if he does that next week or not. But he definitely did 7-on-7, and he looked very, very sharp in those drills, even throwing to guys that, hopefully he's not going to have to throw very much to. Again, there was no Odell, no Tyreek, no Waddle, no Jonnu Smith yesterday. So maybe their top 4 targets, projected for 2024 weren't there. He did seem to show pretty good chemistry there. Guzakama, they connected on a deep pass over the shoulder. I know the Dolphins socialed it out, so you can find that on their Twitter account. He also had a nice deep pass to Taj Washington. A couple of really, really nice throws from Tua yesterday. Again, I'll give him a silver star. I'm not giving him a gold one because it wasn't 11-11s. It wasn't full speed. Sure. There was no blocking. It was in passing drills. The offense has all the advantage. But if he had looked bad, believe me, you would have heard about it. He did not look bad at all. He looked good. Aside from that, I think the defense was flying around really nicely. And we'll see if Channing Tindall, who had a couple of splash plays, if he can build on something in year 3. It's people forget about him. He was a 3rd-round pick 2 years ago. This is his 3rd season now, and he's basically just been a special teams player. Do they see a role for him, maybe coming off the edge, maybe playing some stand-up off-ball linebacker? We'll see. And beyond that, I just think that, Javon Holland remains a really, really good player. He has been here consistently, and he is a guy that, like Tua, is in a contract year. Like Waddle, we were talking about his contract potential drama. He's got 2 years left under his because the Dolphins picked up his 5th-year option. This is it for Tua. This is it for Javon, and both of them were out there yesterday, and I think that's a good sign.
I was reading a little bit about Nick Needham, had spoke, I guess, to the media a little bit about, working on safety and how Poyer has fallen into the mix, and a little bit of Poyer didn't come in like I'm this big man veteran. He came in, just real cool with the guys, real approachable. So it does sound like there's a really good chemistry developing there with the safeties and the cornerback. So I like to hear those types of stories, how they kind of, manage to find chemistry like on and off the field. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that at all.
Yeah, I mean, Poyer is going to be a real leadership guy, a glue guy for that defensive backfield. Ramsey obviously is the most accomplished defensive back that they have. But I think Poyer really, his role is going to be the kind of the heart and soul of that defensive backfield. He has all kinds of credibility in that locker room.
And Bill's secrets to unveil.
He knows all the Bill's secrets. That definitely helps. Yeah. And I just think his personality really, Jalen Ramsey is a total dog, right? I mean, he is we saw his complete maniacal dedication to getting his body right, and he leads in his own way. But I think Poyer brings a different kind of leadership to that group. And it's been interesting to see. I know Javon Holland has been like a sponge around him, which can only help
awesome.
Holland. Certainly.
Sure.
Entering year 4. You mentioned Needham. I think it's pretty clear that they see him as a safety this year. They don't really need him as a corner. I mean, they have contingency upon contingency at this point at cornerback, but they really don't have that many at safety. It's the top 2 guys, Holland and Poyer, and then it's Needham. And I guess Elijah Campbell might be their other backup there. I think we've talked about in this show how I'd be a little surprised if they don't bring in another veteran safety, but so far they seem to like what they have.
Mm-hmm. Going back to Tua a little bit, we talked about this kind of the last episode about, Tua leaning out a little bit, and, Coach had some things to say a little bit more, in detail.
That is such a weightlifting term. What'd you call it?
I don't know. What did I say?
Leaning out? Yeah. When you get leaning out. Right? Oh,
He's leaning out.
I eat out. Is that what you're saying? Or leaning?
Leaning out, gaining muscle, maintaining muscle, but yet being more limber, I believe, is the term that Coach used, being more limber in the pocket. So, good to hear that Coach seems to be a big fan of him working with John Beck, whom Coach seems to have had much experience with. And, he agrees with, Beck's take on, where the team needs to go and, what a quarterback for the Miami Dolphins needs to do. So I liked hearing, a little bit about, Coach was, feeling really good about the way that Tua has been practicing and working on his body.
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple of things I'll get to it. And I have a full story on this online now, I believe, at Pro Football Network, that he made the conscious decision to lean out, to slim down, to drop the baby fat a little bit, and kind of get shredded a little more and be back to what he was when he came out of Alabama. Now, certainly his weight fluctuated significantly after the hip injury, but even when you saw him in college, he was more nimble. And even early in his Dolphins career, coming off that hip, he could move around better than he could last year. And I think his weight was an issue in 2023. But we talked about this. Hey, isn't there a concern that you're dropping this weight that you gained to stay healthy, that you're now putting yourself at injury risk? And it's a real concern. The Dolphins seem to be okay with it. And here's the reason why. To your point, like, the fat wasn't doing him any good. It was the muscle, the strength, the core, keeping your neck firm, all these things that you need to do to protect yourself. You can still do that without being bulked up. Mm-hmm. You just have to be really strong. And there's one thing you can never doubt about Tua Tagovailoa. It's his work ethic. If he is determined to do something, particularly in the offseason when he has time to really to craft his game and his body, he'll do it. And he learned jiu-jitsu last year. He gained weight because he thought he had to. Now he's keto dieting or whatever it is. He's lost some weight, and he's got a lot of that mobility back. So we'll see. To me, I'll always have. You just can't forget his history. I'll always have the back of my mind: is this something that's going to put him at risk for another injury? And the worst thing that could happen, obviously, is a concussion. Like, that is, he cannot afford another concussion. I think he's done a lot of the right things to prevent that. Football is a violent sport. You can't prevent all injuries, but he has minimized the risk. And it seems like the Dolphins are pretty comfortable thinking that his protection is still there, even though his weight is not.
Indeed. And speaking of building off from like a rookie season and, the development that a player goes through, crafting his game, figuring out what's best for his body and how his body can best do the game. Coach, you guys had asked a little bit about Achane and how he's doing, and, the possibility of, the sophomore slump after coming off such a successful season. Achane's obviously been working out a lot too. What are your thoughts on what Coach had to say about him?
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get to see Devon yesterday. He was not there at practice. Not exactly sure why, but he wasn't among them. But McDaniel was asked, where does he go from? How does he build in his rookie season? Because there is always a hope that, a fear that someone could hit that sophomore slump that,
too comfortable. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And McDaniel acknowledged it's real. It's ever present. It's never going to go away in the game because a lot of times lessons have to be learned the hard way. A lot of times if you have success as a rookie, you go one of two ways. You either starve for more or you get kind of comfortable. And here's the money quote. I know each and every year there are examples for both, and that's something that we were talking about with Devon in our exit interviews when he was exiting the building or whatever you did last year. Are you expecting more or less? Well, if you're expecting more, you definitely can't do less. That's an interesting thing to say. Mm-hmm. You get out what you put in, and I think he's aware of that because nobody wants to have the climax of their career be their first year. So you just keep it real with guys and very honest and bring up examples that's happened in the course of your career and try to give them the most tools to succeed the way you know they want to. I will say this thing about Achane. He absolutely loves football. Like he is – some of these young guys, they live the Miami lifestyle, and hey, maybe they're not real. No, that he's a football junkie. He really is. So, to me, if he has a drop off, it'll be more because of breaking down physically. It won't be because he didn't put the work in. It's just that he's a smaller guy. He got hurt a couple of times last year, but I do think that they do have high hopes for him in year 2 to make that next big step forward. And look, he's going to have to fight for carries this year. I think Raheem Mostert knows he's going to have to fight for carries too. Jalen Wright's back. We'll see what they do with Jeff Wilson. Savon Ahmed still in the building. Chris Brooks. They have a bunch of running backs now. Now you can say some are better than others, and I think that's fair. But they have a lot of guys who are going to get an opportunity this summer to make one of 4, maybe 5 jobs max. Now I know practice squad will bring some guys back that way too. But Achane, expectations could not be higher for that dude simply because you don't average whatever it was 7 or 8 yards per carry as a rookie.
Yeah.
And think anything, there's going to be a big drop off. You expect him to play well in year 2.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a pleasure watching him last season. So hopefully we'll see some big things. He put up some really great stats last season. What, like 800 yards?
Yeah.
8 touchdowns or something like that. Really
I mean, his efficiency was otherworldly, yards per carry, touchdowns per carry, all those things that are just out of sight. And we mentioned Tua putting on weight. We should mention that Achane did as well, and perhaps that helps him stay healthy as well.
Yeah, for sure. Any other thoughts?
It's really hot.
Yeah, it's really hot today. I went outside to walk the dog, and I'm like, I'm dying. The neighbor comes by, he's dying. I'm like, this is, summertime in Florida now, people.
Yeah.
And these guys are feeling the heat out here at these practices, as I'm sure you guys are too.
I don't want to complain too much because the Dolphins are really great to us, and we have shaded seating, and those guys are out there running around like crazy. But
insane.
It's 100% summer by now. Like we went straight from winter to summer. There was no spring. There was no transition. And I think there are a lot of new faces on this team. Yeah. All over the defensive starting lineup. There's a bunch of new guys. The draft.
They all have to get used to this Miami Heat.
It's going to take a minute. And I think you're going to see Jalen Wright. Did I tell you this? That he puked through his face mask last week?
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah. Certainly, I'm not going to cast any aspersions because I would probably do it through my nose. Yeah. But you kind of had the not welcome to the NFL, but welcome to the South Florida climate rookie moment there. And the good news is you can get all those bumps and bruises and pukes out of the way in May, June, July, August. And then when September rolls around, you let the other teams kind of feel that heat.
For sure. And at training camp, when they finally open it up to the public, we'll be feeling that heat too. That's like the one thing that I take away from, actually being there and watching the training camps is like how these guys sweat. Like, how can you possibly sweat so much and put enough water into your body? So it's insane. Like, that's conditioning, at its finest. Like, people do hot yoga, to get a better burn. And like, it's hot yoga all day out here, baby.
No, the tackles and offensive and defensive linemen are really, they can go with 15 pounds of sweat, which, to be honest, can be dangerous. Like, there's a reason they're on top of these guys from hydration. Obviously, the worst tragedy was about 20 years ago, the Corey Stringer death. Thankfully, knock on wood, nothing like that's happened here in Miami. But there's a reason. It's because there's an awareness of hydration, of keeping that body core temperature down as much as you can. And that goes for the media too, man. I need some I need some ice cold waters and one of those fan machines for my face, those misters. I think
Listen, I have one on my Amazon page. I can help you out. I have the best neck fan. It's so clutch, especially during training camp. Like, you will not see me at training camp without my neck fan, and those early games in the season too.
Is this where we get another coupon code, Dolph Freaky 2024? Is that what we're going to get next? Or
it's the link in my bio. That's all you need to know. Well,
and by the way, all of her links in her bio are PG. There's not there, she's
oh yeah, like
not like some members of Dolphins Twitter. Okay, I'm not saying any names, but not like some members of Dolphins Twitter where it can get a little saucy. Everything in her account is family friendly.
Dolph Freaky tries to keep it family friendly. Like, listen, I got kids. There might be a few bikini photos, floating around out there, but that's all you're gonna get.
Well, beyond kids, you also have a husband.
Poor guy.
Probably cannot be thrilled.
You know what? He's like all for the OnlyFans thing and like selling the feet photos on the internet and all. He's like anything so that I can get truck parts. And I'm like, really? Like you would just
he's
let
pimping
me
you
do
out
that?
for truck parts?
He would pimp me out for truck parts. I know there's like a lot of people watching right now being like, yeah, I would pimp my wife out for truck parts too.
Now, if you said golf membership, we can
okay.
conversation.
Listen, I don't want anything to do with it. I got enough creepers in the DMs. I'm good.
God, I can't imagine the war zone that your Instagram DM is like.
Yeah, I mean, I've cut back a lot on like my thirst traps and things. It used to be a lot worse, and there's a couple people out there like doing the most right now to like take some of that off me. So yeah, we could. I have done podcasts about this actually. I did like one pretty lengthy podcast about like all the craziness that like goes on in my DMs. Like people like that stuff, but that's another podcast.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be the highest rated podcast in the history of Pro Football Network.
Oh, especially if I called out the people who are doing it. That's what people
they
like it when they call out the guys.
Yeah,
I try not to do that either. Listen, like I just try to keep it professional. I try to be nice.
Could also cause some problems in the home front for them too.
Yeah, I know, and I'm just not trying to do that at all.
The things we learn about Dolph Freaky during the half hour we spend together every week.
I know.
Thankfully,
it just keeps the people wanting more.
Speaking of off-season content, this is a complete 180. We've started our iconic series at PFN, and I'd encourage you, Pro Football Network readers and listeners and viewers, to go check it out. Today, right now, the top 10 quarterbacks in Miami Dolphins history are on Pro Football Network, as voted on by me, myself, and I. You can probably guess who number 1 and number 2 are. After that, you're going to have to click. Number 1, obviously, is Marino. Number 2 is Bob Greasy, the 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. But after that, it gets fun. There's okay,
we got to dig that up, post it out, and yeah, we'll take a look and see what we think. Maybe we can discuss that next week.
Yeah, well, we'll also have mini camp. There's a lot going on. We'll probably save the list till after we get through mini camp, because here's the thing.
When it gets boring.
After next week, we got nothing to talk about for 6 weeks. So
then we can bring out the Dolph Freaky DM stories.
That'll be my favorite episode of all time.
Hey, whatever it takes to keep our guys entertained here on the PFN Miami Dolphins podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening always and supporting, liking, subscribing, all these good things. Thank you, for your engagement in our show, and I hope you guys are enjoying it.
Vamos Gatos.
Vamos Rangers.
Adios, guys.
Fins up, guys.